The top title this week is about an assassin, which is kind of appropriate because every other title from last week except for one got killed off this week. Hello everybody and welcome to another countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the week of October 8th to the 14th of 2018. I'm Justice R. Stone and I do this countdown every single week, and on this channel I focus on all things light novels, including this countdown as well as news, reviews, and the Light Novel Podcast gets posted here as well. So if you love light novels or maybe you're just starting to get interested in them, you should consider subscribing. Now, like I said at the intro, only one title managed to survive on the top 10 from last week, so we have almost an entirely new list this week, which is, well, it's always kind of exciting when you've got a bunch of new stuff to talk about, so let's get right into it. At number 10, with 7,460 copies sold, this is the only remaining volume from last week, and that's volume number 17 of Re:Zero, Kara Hajimeru Isekai Seikatsu, or as we have it in English, Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World. This one is released in English by Yen On. They've currently released up to volume number 7, volume 8 coming very, very soon. I actually just finished volume number 7. It was my most recent light novel review. This is one of my favorite series. It absolutely, I think, is one of the better isekais, following Subaru, who discovers that pretty much the only power he has in this life, in this world that he's been summoned to, is that if he dies, he sort of restarts events from a random point in the past. And it really is all about him trying to use this accumulated knowledge that he gains over these repetitions to try and set things right, just so he can try and, well, avoid the death flags and survive to the next incident that, well, we're all pretty much know at this point he's going to eventually get killed and have to do it all over again. This one also had an anime which covered up to the first 9 volumes. It also has a manga which is released in English by Yen Press. At number 9, with 9,001 copies sold, wow, this is going to be a title that's terrible. Honzuki no Gekokujo. That's the easy part. Shisho ni naru tame ni wa shudan wo eran de reiramasen gaiden. Sorry, I butchered that. Yeah. This one is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Stop at nothing to be a librarian. And gaiden is because this is not part of the main series. It's actually a side short story volume. This one's a collection of short side stories and alternate views of past events. Now, the main series has been very popular. In fact, it topped up Kono Light Novel ga Sugoi in 2000 well, they call it the 2018 list, even though it was technically for the titles of 2017. But anyway, Motosu Urano, a book-loving college student who just got her librarian certification, was supposed to enter the job of her dreams after graduation, but was killed during a massive earthquake, crushed underneath a pile of her own massive collection of books. Wishing for reincarnation in order to read even more, she got reincarnated to a world with a low literacy level and very few books, limited only to the nobility of the world. As she reincarnated as a 5-year-old daughter of a lowly soldier, Maine, no matter how much she wants to read, there is no way there are any books around. If there are no books, then what do? You make them for yourself, of course. What her goal is, to become a librarian no matter what, and to live a life surrounded by books. For starters, she begins by making them. This is a series that I keep saying that I would love to read, and I know many other people agree with me, so, well, you know, all you can do is just fill in those J-Novel Club forum requests or the 7 Seas requests every month, and we'll see what happens. At number 8, with 10,920 copies sold, Volume 15 of Rakudai Kishi no Cavalry, or as it was released as an anime in English, A Chivalry of the Failed Knight. We do not have a license in English for the light novels. The anime, as I said, it was a 12-episode anime which aired October to December of 2015 and was licensed for English release by Sentai Filmworks. In a time and place where one's soul can be morphed into a weapon, there are modern-day magicians called Mage Knights. Although Kurogane Iki is a student at an institution that trains Mage Knights, he has no particular talent in magic and is labeled the Failure Knight, or Worst One. Getting way less than average marks in the scorings, he was forced to repeat a year. But with the arrival of a new head of the institution, a new rule was created. Knights, whose abilities are compatible, as decided by the board, must share rooms and attend practice and training together throughout their school years to bring up their abilities to the max. It is a rule to implement the absolute verdict of ability. Iki's roommate, Stella Vermilion, turns out to be a princess of another foreign country. Stella is a rank A knight, the type of genius in magic who only appears once a decade. When Iki walked in on her while she was changing her clothes, it caused a huge misunderstanding, which eventually ended up in a duel between the two of them. The punishment for the losing side is eternal submission to the winning side. Forced to live in the same room and practice magic together throughout all their school years, how will Stella and Iki's relationship evolve? Well, I've got a wild guess how it's going to evolve, and, well, I've heard rumor that I might just be right about that one. This is a series, of course, that I know a lot of you have been requesting constantly that we get in English, and, well, I don't know. All I guess I can say is let's just keep requesting. This is one I wouldn't mind reading as well, so, well, hopefully we'll get a chance at some point. At number 7, with 13,728 copies sold, volume number 3 of Seijo no Marioku wa Bano Desu, or The Power of the Saint is All Around. We do not have a license for this series. Sei, a 20-year-old office worker, was summoned to a different world after finishing some overtime work. But the person who had summoned her looked at her face and said, "This is not the saint. Is this neglect play?" Sei left the royal palace and concealed her saint title. She started working at a laboratory where she made potions and cosmetics. She used her magic to grant people's requests, and slowly people began suspecting that she was a saint. Can Sei enjoy her slow, dreamy, different world life without her saint title being found out? So this sounds another like one of those light novel titles where the protagonist works themselves literally to death, and then when they are inserted into another world, they have quite a bit of power and do their best to try and hide it because they just want to chill out. This one, actually, in that way, it sounds kind of similar to I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level, which I absolutely loved. I would be curious to check this one out if we ever get it in English, but again, there's only 3 volumes, so I wouldn't say it's highly likely quite at the moment. At number 6, with 13,657 copies sold, Volume 9 of Seishun Buta Yaro series, or as we're currently having the anime released in English, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. We do not have an English license for these light novels. A 13-episode anime has just started airing on Crunchyroll. It's coming out this season. I believe we're up to episode 3 on it, although I don't watch them because I'm kind of fingers crossed that we might actually get this series in English. And not only are they doing the TV series adapting a number of the books, but they've already announced that they're going to do a theatrical film which will finish adapting the novels. Hey, shall we kiss? She who was teasing me with these seductive words temporarily disappeared before my eyes. There could not be a bunny girl inhabiting a library. Azusagawa Sakuta faced a scene that toppled common sense. He encountered a bunny girl and she is nowhere a normal bunny girl. She is Sakurajima Mai Senpai, a student studying at the same school as Sakuta, and a retired yet renowned actress. It was said that starting from a few days ago, those around her could no longer see her anymore, and she came to the library just to confirm this. Is this related to the hit topic on the internet, the unimaginable phenomenon known as the puberty syndrome? Sakuta, wanting to know the reasons behind and get closer to Mai, decided to solve the puzzle. However, the situation then developed in an unexpected way. In the city surrounded by the skies and seas, the romance story of She and I began. Now this seems to be getting some really positive word of mouth with the whole anime that's currently airing, and I mean, well, you kind of have to love the character design, but nonetheless, I've actually seen it compared to Bakemonogatari in terms of these characters and their relationships and the way that sort of dialogue seems to be playing a big role in the series, and sort of this sort of snappy dialogue. And I've seen like little screen caps that seem to suggest a biting bit of sarcasm, which well, you know, it's always a lot of fun, actually. So this one's gotten a lot of sort of positive spin. And I actually saw today on Twitter that Sam from J Novel Club was asked about licensing this, and he said he tried and was denied by the publisher, so his assumption was that it had already been licensed. But he also said that the publisher had not licensed anything to him previously, so it may have been more that the case. I'm very curious then, so I mean, we know J Novel Club's shown some interest. I'm curious to see if anybody else picks this one up, especially with the anime seemingly to be getting a lot of positive spin from fans online. At number 5, with 16,385 copies sold, volume number 8 of Goblin Slayer. This one we do have licensed for English release by Yen On. Volume 5 released on September 18th, 2018. The manga is also licensed for English release by Yen Press, and Yen On is also releasing the spin-off, the Goblin Slayer Year 1 series, which is coming out very soon. And there is an anime which is currently being airing on Crunchyroll, and well, I'm pretty sure that if you follow anime buzz in any way whatsoever, you're probably quite aware of this anime, but probably for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. A young priestess has formed her first adventuring party, but almost immediately they find themselves in distress. It's the Goblin Slayer who comes to their rescue, a man who's dedicated his life to the extermination of all goblins by any means necessary. And when rumors of his feats begin to circulate, there's no telling who might come calling next. I will reveal to you that this is going to be the next topic we cover on the Light Novel podcast. We had always intended to cover Goblin Slayer during this season, because of course with the anime airing, but when we saw sort of the blow-up that happened, particularly around the first episode, something that we kind of predicted might happen actually in our previous podcast when we were talking about the new stuff coming out as anime, we kind of thought, well, you know what, we really do need to address this, particularly because this is I think a very good illustration of how light novels can present stuff that is not quite as, well, how there is a very different way that things are adapted from light novel to manga to anime, and we want to sort of address that and talk a bit about that and sort of talk about this series and maybe the larger implications. So it's going to be an interesting podcast. I think a little bit different from what we have done so far, but I think definitely it's something that we want to address and something we want to talk about. I know in the light novel community, there's a lot of people who enjoy Goblin Slayer and enjoy the fact that the light novels don't get as graphic as the manga and as it sounds like the anime has. So anyway, that'll be the next light novel podcast. This is a series that I myself have enjoyed to this point. I haven't picked up volume 5 yet, but I definitely will be. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a series that seems to have become a very polarizing one in the anime community. So we're going to talk about this on the light novel podcast, and we'll see how all of you feel about it as well. At number 4, with 18,710 copies sold, Volume 9 of 86. Now this one has been licensed for English release by Yen On. They just announced that at Anime Expo a couple months ago. Volume 1 is currently listed for a March 19th, 2019 release. The San Magnolia Republic has long been under attack by unmanned weapons from the neighboring empire. Against this onslaught, the Republic has also deployed similar weapons, narrowly avoiding great loss of life and impending disaster. Or at least, that's how it seemed. The truth is that it has never been possible to have no casualties. Young men and women drawn from the Republic's supposedly non-existent 86th District are organized into the 86 Unit and then ordered to pilot the unmanned weapons before heading to battle. This is a series I'm very excited to read. I'm really looking forward to it. This was one that I was very much fingers crossed and hoping we would get in English, and was quite happy to see it licensed. So I'll definitely be picking this one up when it comes out in March. At number 3, with 22,188 copies sold, volume number 8 of Biblia Koshudo no Jikan Teicho, or it is released in English, The Case Records of the Biblia Secondhand Bookstore. This one, there's no English license for the novels, but there was a live action series based on this series, and that was actually released on Crunchyroll, and it was actually a really good series. I really enjoyed watching it. I would love to see this getting licensed in English, to be honest. Hidden away in a corner of Kamakura is an unassuming second-hand bookstore, the Biblia Antiquarian Bookshop. Shinokawa Shioriko, the owner of the shop, is an overly shy, young, and beautiful woman who doesn't fit the image of a used bookstore and often has trouble interacting with customers. While customer service isn't her strong point, she more than makes up for it in other ways. Using her exhaustive knowledge and unrivaled passion for literature, she unravels the secrets and mysteries of the antiquarian books that come into her shop. So it's kind of like a literature slash mystery type series. It's kind of like her discovering the story behind these used books that come into her store. Like I said, I really liked the live action series. It was a lot of fun, and this would be something I'd really like to see, particularly because it's very different than much of the light novels that we have in English currently. At number 2, with 32,322 copies sold, Volume 21 of Shinyaku Toaru Majutsu no Index, or A Certain Magical Index New Testament. This one, we do not have this particular series licensed for English release, but we do have the parent series, A Certain Magical Index, being released by Yen On. They're also releasing the manga under their Young Press title, and of course, the third season, the very long-awaited third season of the anime based on A Certain Magical Index, is just starting to air on Crunchyroll right now. So this one is actually the sequel series to A Certain Magical Index, and you can see it's already up to volume 21. And I have said this before that I can almost guarantee that we're going to get this in English, but we're not going to hear about it or hear any announcements about it until A Certain Magical Index is finished, which I think we still got a number of volumes to go. My guess is that 2019 we will hear about this series getting licensed in English, and then it will start releasing in 2020. That is my prediction for this particular series. Finally, at number 1, with 53,917 copies sold, Mahoka Koko no Reitose, Shiba Tatsuya Ansatsu Keikaku. Or, the Irregular at Magic High School plan to assassinate Tatsuya Shiba. Now this one is not licensed in English at the moment, although the parent series, The Irregular at Magic High School, is being released by Yen On. They released volume 9 on September 18th of 2018. This novel is the very first spin-off of the Irregular at Magic High School series, which is kind of crazy when you think that that main series has had, I think they're on, what, volume 26 at this point? I think it's 26 of the main series. I mean, it's more than the mid-20s at the very least. So this one is a novel featuring a new heroine named Yuki Hashibami, and she is an assassin of magicians, but she's not a magician herself. And this is about her taking on Tatsuya and planning to try and assassinate him, which, I mean, it's Tatsuya. We kind of know how that's probably going to turn out for her, but I'm sure she'll be brought to the good side before all is said and done. This one, from what I understand, is being actually, at least this first volume, was serialized a bit in, I believe, a magazine in Japan, and now this is sort of been collecting it all. And as I said, it's the first spin-off series of The Irregular at Magic High School, which is a pretty big deal, and, well, you can see what the fan base has decided in terms of how excited they are to pick this one up with over 53,000 copies sold in just its first week alone. This week, I want to say a special thanks to Renzaz, Michaela Werner, Fixlab.com, Patrick Umbaihi, and Ricardo Matos, as well as all the rest of my patrons on Patreon, whose continued support helps me buy books to review for this channel, as well as paying for hosting for the Light Novel podcast, so it's available on as many platforms as possible so that we can do what we can to share the love of light novels with as many people as possible. So those are your top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the week of October 8th to the 14th of 2018. What do you guys think? I mean, I can almost put money that the Mahoka spin-off is still going to be #1 next week, but it'll be interesting to see just how many of these titles hang on. Like I said, wow, like almost a complete obliteration of last week's top 10 with just ReZero hanging on at number 10. So it'll be interesting to see where sort of everything plays out next week, but as I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the same #1 next week, because, well, Mahoka pretty much always owns the #1 spot for at least a couple weeks after a new volume releases. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, or maybe you're just getting into them, you should consider subscribing. As I said, I do this countdown every single week, as well as doing weekly reviews on light novels, and the Light Novel podcast gets posted to this channel as well. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.